the one thing that reigns true is that regardless of what people outside of our community can say about Haiti and the dysfunction that's happening in there, and try to assign that chaos and dysfunction to us as a people, all they have to do is point to the strength of the community outside of Haiti, right? Like what happens when we leave and we are put in places where there's access to education, affordable education, right? There's access to resources, there's access to just being able to have basic needs met, right? So that way you can think about bigger picture things, about your career, your path, how do you integrate yourself as a valuable member of society.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Creole Narratives podcast. I'm your host, Vania Patterson. This space amplifies Haiti and the rich history and culture of the Haitian Diaspora. I'm so thrilled to kick off Women's History Month with a dynamic leader in the Haitian community. She is Vania, who is the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Haitian Times. Vania, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Fadia. I am a big fan and so equally happy to be here and just be a part of your stories and telling just voices in the community. So just happy to be a part of this.
I'm so happy to have you here. You are one of the biggest champions of this podcast. I want to share that the Haitian Times is a promoter of the podcast. You share it on your platform. I'm so grateful for that partnership with Creole Narratives, and to have you on the show in your new role as a publisher and editor-in-chief. Can you talk to us about that and how you gradually got promoted to that role?
So I'll start about 11 years ago. That's when I was first introduced to Garry by a mutual acquaintance. And at that time, Haitian Times was at a crossroads where he had stopped publishing the print edition of the paper about 2 years prior and was in this transition space of trying to figure out, okay, what does the next version of the Haitian Times looks like? And so when I joined, what I knew was that I joined with a very strong brand, right? And a paper that had a very strong mission and purpose that spoke to me as someone that would be their target audience, and then also somebody wanting to be a part of us telling our own stories. And so when I started, it was really a pared down operation of what we have now. It was essentially just myself and Garry working with a handful of college interns and freelancers, just trying to get to the next day, making sure that, we're publishing, that the community is seeing us out and about, and just remembering that we're still here. And then so that was what my life looked like for about 5 years, right? Just that in and out, just doing that type of work. And so fast forward to 2018, 2019, that's really when we saw a surgence of traffic, of more eyes on us. And a lot of it is because of what was happening in Haiti. This is when we saw a lot of conversation about Petrocaribe and where the money was going. This is that year when the president issued the increase in gas hikes. I think it was something like 30 to 40% overnight. And so it was the first time during my tenure at the Haitian Times that I saw how much the community, not just our community, but the international community was coming to us for information. And so really, the trajectory of me being here now as publisher and editor-in-chief has just been really a series of us trying to work through and report as best as possible these major headline news that's happened within our community that's gained international attention, but then also just bringing together back a team that was there at the beginning of the print publication and just building back up to a place where we can really serve the community as much as possible.
And you're in a unique position as both a journalist, but also a journalist of Haitian descent. I mean, how are you navigating both in this job, in this career, in the times that we are in right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's being a journalist for a diaspora publication. So I look at us as we're not community news 100%. We are community because what binds us is our ethnicity, our heritage, our culture, our language, and our ties to Haiti, right? Kind of less so in community that we may know traditionally in terms of like geographical base. And I make that point because when you are a part of a community that you're covering, it poses a lot of challenges, right? And so one of the things that I constantly find that I'm doing is towing this line between being a member of of the community, which is a huge advantage, right? Like I know the stories, the conversations, what my audience wants and cares about innately because I am a part of the thing that we are creating this content, this information for. At the same time, because of my role in the community as someone that's leading an institution that's important, not just for us, but our footprint globally, it's difficult at times to think about the relationships that you start to form, right? And so we have a lot of conversations in the newsroom about making sure that we're always staying true to ethical boundaries in a way that I'm not sure if folks working for a publication that may not be covering the community that they're a part of have to contend with on like a much regular basis than we do.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times for myself, even as a Haitian journalist, there are just some nuances about our community that I always feel like I have to explain to other journalists or other members of the community. So do you find yourself having to do that, being an educator and helping people have empathy for this community?
Yeah, that's a really great question because yes, that is definitely part of the job, a big part of the editorial philosophy and mission that I want to really amplify. You know, this is something that Gary had put the groundwork, but it's about humanizing these decisions, right? Like it's so important. Again, for me as somebody who is Haitian American that grew up in this country, I know the stereotypes against us. I know the biases people have. And so it's so easy for people to see these policies, right? So, for example, ending TPS early, right? It's so easy for somebody who doesn't see us as humans, as people, just to look at this as like a number. Well, we have 500,000 of them here in the country. You know, what do they contribute or produce? You know, like looking at it in such black and white and binary terms. And so for us, it's important, really, like, no, like, these are people like this man, Marie Jean Claude, you know, like here's this person who's been living in this community for 10 years, has a business, you know, has children. Like we need to see the faces and hear the stories of the people being impacted. And so that is increasingly something that we're always challenging the freelancers that work with us, our reporters, our editors, to look for those voices, look for those human stories. And that is what we put front and center because that's how we educate people. That's how we get them to empathize and see that, you know, we're not here because we're trying to, you know, to be malicious or trying to take something away from anybody. You know, the people that I know are all good people that want to give back to their second home and just want to be valued members of society. And so absolutely, you know, part of our job is educating it, but that's the main reason why we want us to see them as humans.
Can you share where the diaspora is for the Haitian community? I feel like there's so many different enclaves that have
Yeah.
come up even from my time growing up in New York City. And, you know, I knew of Chicago and Florida, but there's been so many others that have popped up.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating and something I'm personally interested in following our migration patterns because I'm not sure if there is another apples to apples comparison country that sees that same migration as we do. There are a few maybe in Eastern Europe that I can point to, but I really think we are very unique. And so what we see is that United States has the largest diaspora population, right? With the bulk of that concentration being in New York, South Florida, and like the tri-state adjacent areas. And that's what we've typically known, right? And then followed by perhaps, some flows into like Quebec, Montreal area, and a smaller population going to France. Over the last 10, 15 years, what we're seeing is that in the United States specifically, a lot of the factors that are impacting other populations in New York and Miami, South Florida, leaving those areas. So we're talking about gentrification, increased housing costs. Those are the exact same reasons why now we see a flow of Haitians going to places in the Midwest, like in Indiana, in Ohio, right? We also see populations now growing more in the southern region, not just really concentrated in Florida and pockets of Georgia, but now we're seeing more in the Carolinas. There's a small community popping up in Alabama. Kentucky, right? A lot of these areas are flowing based on these type of like housing costs and gentrification issues, but then also because of immigration policies, right? States like Kentucky, Alabama, and a few more, they don't have something called E-Verify. E-Verify essentially requires an employer to check the social security number, the employment status of a worker. And so states that don't have these E-Verify systems are also seeing increased populations of Haitians going there, not just Haitians, right? Just all types of migrants that are looking for work. And then if we look outside of the United States, we're looking at, Mexico, Brazil for a while, Chile, Canada is a given, and then a business community popping up in the UK and even parts of Asia. So we're everywhere, literally. We're a global diaspora.
I just met this gentleman who just moved here. He came straight from Taiwan. And I said, "What are Haitians?" And he said, "Yeah, there is a program for Haitians in Taiwan.
Yeah.
He's an engineer, and he went there to study abroad." I had no clue. So
Yeah.
I know Springfield was a hot topic this year. The Haitian Times at one point also became part of the news while covering Springfield. Can you talk to us about what that experience was like? I know that you all had gone through some threats because of your coverage. And was this the first time you all have ever gone through that experience?
Yes, it definitely was. And it was a big learning experience for me as a leader in the newsroom, but then also just for me as a personal, as a person individually, as a Haitian American, but then also as a journalist. And I'll be very frank in saying that I never anticipated or prepared our team for any situation in which we would be targeted in that manner. And so that means things like digital protection, right? Like there were folks trying to hack our site. We were getting floods of emails, like inappropriate emails to our general inboxes, myself. A lot of that digital protection hadn't even thought about it, right? Like took it for granted. Definitely would have never anticipated people on our team being personally targeted where folks are finding out their address, their information, right? We never had any type of system in place to even address that because we were singularly always focused on our team in Haiti, right? They were the ones that were thinking about, okay, how do we get bulletproof vests to them? Like this is what they're asking us for. Like, how do we make sure that they can move about the country safely to get a story? And so it was just very like mind-boggling and just eye-opening into how important press is. Like this wasn't just like an attack that I saw on the Haitian Times. I view this as like an attack on press in general, but it's especially Black immigrant press, right? Like we were targeted specifically for trying to debunk these rumors and then also just shedding light about all the white supremacy activity that was happening in Ohio and really feeding a lot of like these anti-Haitian sentiments. And so we were thrust in a position where we had to just like try to find solutions immediately. One thing that I will say is that the greater, journalism community really came through for us. So like our counterparts in community media, journalism support organizations like the International Women's Media Foundation. They provided us a lot of support financially, with time and resources, and making sure that we were protected digitally. PEN America came to our aid. Reporters for Lawyers for Reporters. I mean, all of these groups came to our aid without us even having to ask, to make sure that we knew that there was a game plan, that there was a way to protect our people on the ground, digitally, on social, and that we had support, regardless if we had the resources internally to take care of that. And so it was very eye-opening, like I keep saying. And now I'm in a position where immediately after the election, my first thought was like, crap, like, okay, what is this going to mean for the Haitian Times? And especially with a president that is very antagonistic to the press, right? I mean, for him to literally say, no, I'm going to handpick who was a part of the press corps at the White House, like literally trying to control the flow of information. And so I'm now faced with the realization that the Haitian Times is somewhat a player adjacent to all of these like national and global conversations happening. And how do I protect my team while they're doing their job during all of this? And so it's something I'm working through as we speak. And, honestly, like a little bit fearful, but trying to be like confident and strong at the same time.
I saw a lot of your coverage during, the election, and I saw a note that you wrote, the Haitian Times issued to its readers, just letting them know, hey, we know some of you are supporters of this president, and we know some of you are not. How are you navigating the fact that the diaspora is not a monolith? You do have Haitians who do support Republicans, and then you do have Haitians who do support Democrats. Some are independent. I feel like a lot of Haitians are even more so issue voters than they are affiliated with any party. So, can you talk about that note that you issued to your readers who are who represent all spectrums when it comes to political views?
Yeah, I felt that was really important for a number of reasons. One, that note was just as much to our readers as it was to folks outside of the community, because I want people to understand that Black people in general are not a monolith, right? And so a lot of the conversation that we saw coming out of this election is, the Black vote, right? And how could, X amount of people vote this way, or like the Latino vote, how could they vote this way, right? There's not one way to be Black. And so that was one important message to get out there, that just like there's diversity of thought and political ideology in white communities, in Asian communities, it's the same way in Black communities. And the reason that was important is because I believe like the privilege in being Black is being able to be yourself, right? Like that's the privilege that other racial groups have, right? Like in the sense that you represent yourself, you don't represent an entire race. And so for me, it's really important that we didn't other and vilify a fraction of our readers because of their political ideology, right? People are voting for different candidates for a number of reasons, right? And for me, as somebody that's running a news institution, it's important for me as somebody that believes in the tenets of journalism, right? In the impartiality and being unbiased. It's important for me that we exemplify that as a paper in our coverage, right? And so part of that for me was letting folks know, like we are not here if we're looking to speak to you because we have a slant or an angle at all. The only thing that I am trying to do is deliver news from a Haitian American or a Haitian diaspora perspective. That's it, right? And so that means talking to all types of perspectives. And so I just wanted to signal that to the outside community that may think like, well, because you're Black, you're automatically for all of these things, right? That we've been told that Black people believe in. And then for us internally, this is also to help us and my reporters and editors do their job, right? Do not think that a Haitian Times reporter is coming to speak to you about your beliefs, that we've already have a story in mind, or that we have already this framing. Like, no, we want to know how you feel and why you feel it, because this is about delivering news from a Haitian perspective. And then the last thing I'll say about that is, despite that, wanting to make sure that we don't other or vilify any faction of our readers, part of it that's also really important is that we contextualize things, right? And that's where, I am always curious to see what kind of reader do I actually have, right? Like, what type of people are actually following the Haitian Times that can understand that criticism or critique or highlighting the truth about something, despite it being in conflict of your beliefs, is not a slant, right? It's information. And so I'm constantly just trying to monitor in our comments, the feedback, like, how do our readers receive the truth? Right? Especially truth that may go against whatever preconceived notions that they have about this person being wonderful and why, but while reminding them, like, well, you love Trump, but let's remember, like, this is what he said about your people, and this is how he behaved in the first term. You may not care about that, and that's cool, but I wouldn't be doing my job and not contextualizing all of this, right? It all matters. Like, same thing how we highlight Biden's record, right? A lot of things that he felt short on, that the community felt. We put out an entire Biden report card, as critical as him as we would be of Trump and anybody in that position that is dealing with our community on a very regular basis.
And that's journalism 101, right? Getting all angles, getting all sides of the story.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we go to school to learn, and that's what we should be putting forth all the time. I feel like we can enterprise stories about the Haitian diaspora for days, because there's so many layers, there's so many nuances to our culture. I mean, we just talked about it, right? About the fact that not all Haitians are a part of one party, or we vote one way. There's a diversity of thought in our culture, and I'm finding for a lot of outsiders, they're shook about that. It surprises them, but it's true. There's diversity even in our political views. What is that conversation like when it comes to the intersectionality of being Haitian, representing Black culture, representing Haitian culture, being from a Latin American country, Latino culture? Not Hispanic, but Latino culture.
Oh my gosh.
And that's a whole other podcast.
This for another hour. So I'm like, I'm literally trying to think, okay, like, what do I focus on so I'm not rambling for 20 minutes, because there's so much there. I will start, gosh, I guess I will start first with the Haitian American identity. The first thing I will preface that by saying is, for whatever reason, Black and white people alike, right? They, for some reason, have a difficult time conceptualizing that the Black race is made up of different nationalities and ethnicities the same way the white race is, the way the Asian race is. But for some reason, we trip it up with Black people, right? So if I were to tell anyone, right, is an Irish American the same as an Italian American? People will be like, no, they're just both white, right? They're both European, right? We can add that to it, right? Mm-hmm. Can we understand the difference between a Japanese American and a Korean American, right? They're both Asian, right? But one is Japanese, right? A Japanese American as an ethnicity, and another one's Korean American. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's the same thing. Like, the difference between a Haitian American and African American is we're both Black, but we're just of different ethnicities, right? The same way Irish American versus Italian American. I think the other thing that trips people up is that this is where, like, you get into like semantics, right? And trying to understand perspective that that person is coming from when they speak to you. When they say Black, they're not talking Black race. They're using Black synonymously with African American, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's like the first breakdown in communication, right? I, as a Black Haitian, right, Haitian American, there are white Haitian Americans, there are Arab Haitian Americans, right? There are Asian Haitian Americans. Yep. For whatever reason, Black people and people who are not Black can't understand that we're not a monolith. Like, I honestly don't understand. I don't get why this is such an issue.
There's definitely a disconnect. I always have to explain to people that, you know, the majority of the slave trade, those people went to the Caribbean, the Brazil, mm-hmm. South America. Why do you think Brazil has one of the biggest diaspora of the African community outside of Africa?
So I'll preview this with you and your listeners. So Vania, our special projects editor, she's working on a whole project around dissecting the Haitian American identity for Haitian Heritage Month. And so it's something that we're talking about actively in real time, including conversations like, you know, yeah, there's this push to identify us as Latino. And sure, yes, this is like, if we want to go textbook definition and semantics, yes, we are, you and I are Latina, we're a part of the Latino community. But there's a difference about what is like in theory and real and what's in practice. And let's be real, right? Mm-hmm. Like the greater Latin American community looks at us as an other, right? Yeah. And the why, yes, it is heavily racially motivated. That's part of it. But then also there are differences in cultures and perspectives, right? And so I can't say that I am necessarily mad at, you know, somebody that is Puerto Rican or Venezuelan or Dominican who feel like we're trying to co-opt their identity by forcing ourselves in the conversation, right? There's something about it being true in definition, but whether it's true in practice. And, you know, it's not the same, you know? And I also feel like we shouldn't be trying to force ourselves in spaces that we're not wanted. You know, it's like being somewhat to some degree, in my opinion.
Somewhat.
But then again,
that's the term.
You know, but then again, it's like identify as you identify, right? Like mm-hmm. That's a very personal decision that I would never like admonish somebody for. So that's just my personal feelings.
Just moving forward, you know, what is the Haitian Times hoping to cover more of when it comes to mm-hmm. sharing our stories of the diaspora that, you know, you want to drive home and you want even outsiders, people who are not in the community to understand?
Definitely one of the priorities is capturing the experiences of people that are living in these new Haitian enclaves, right? While still keeping our pulse on what's happening in New York, Boston, you know, that tri-state area in Florida. But now I want to know, like, what is it like for that recent immigrant from Haiti that's living in Alabama, right? There may be other Black people around him, but not necessarily Black people who even know that Haiti existed, right? You take for granted, you go to New York, you're going to be encountered with other Black immigrants, right? Jamaicans, Nigerians, Ghanaians. You take for granted, you go to Florida, you're going to be confronted by other Black immigrants that may be from Cuba, Dominican Republic, right? But what does that experience look like going into these other communities where it's not just perhaps white people have never seen someone from your background before, but it could be also other people of color, right? And so wanting to understand just what's their life like, what's their experience, what are those communities growing into, how are those communities absorbing them? And then part of also what is a priority for us over the next several years, I think, is just a lot more accountability reporting out of Haiti. And the reason why that's important is that the one trend that I see is that our people, regardless of where they go, they're confronted with xenophobia, right? Regardless. And so we're capturing all of these stories and experiences and how people are navigating those, still creating beautiful lives right, in these secondary homes. But then it comes to a point where we're in the middle of a what's that saying, a rock in a hard place, where you're kind of like having to adjust to this new normal and just navigate your life around all of these other isms that you're dealing with. And then you can't even go back home, right? Because the country's not set up in a place to receive you. There's chaos. Everybody that's there, for the most part, is trying to get out. And so for me, part of what I think my role, your role, other journalists in the community is holding Haiti accountable, like finding and like pushing through a way to make sure that we are calling out all of the reasons why we can't go back, why it's not an option, right? That's like extremely important to me. And so I think it's about capturing what's going on in the diaspora, but then making sure that we're doing like real investigative accountability reporting out of Haiti, so that way the diaspora can go back when it wants to. When we're someplace, like Abjuna Figinu, like I don't need this. I have a home I can go back to. And so it's a big, lofty goal to some regard, considering like just access to information in Haiti and the overall like culture around press. But it's a challenge that I think is still worth trying to surmount, despite whether or not I may ever get there.
Yeah, and speaking of going back, I'm interviewing a lot of environmental refugees. These are people who got TPS not because of the recent gang war that's happening in Haiti, but they came after the Haiti earthquake. Like one lady, she's an amputee, the building fell on her. So the probability that that building has been rebuilt is not, I can guarantee is not there. She says that I have nothing to go back to. So
Yeah.
You're right about those stories, about sharing those stories about what these people are dealing with, and really having nothing to go back to because of the infrastructure in Haiti, the way it's set up, the lack of a government that continuously is switching leaders all the time. I know we've had a switch with prime ministers. Last year, when I started my podcast, Ariel Henry was the prime minister. He resigned. Then you had Gary Cornet. He lasted 6 months. And then in the meantime, this transitional council is trying to set themselves up to have an election in Haiti so that they can get their government back. Where do you think we are when it comes to that?
I think it's a farce, I think I question whether or not the people who actually have some degree of power in Haiti on the legislative level, if they care more about country or self, right? And all I've seen, I think, especially in the last several years, with a few notable exceptions, that it sounds like it's more about ego and self than about actually trying to build Haiti into something, right? Into some type of functioning society. Elections are supposed to happen at the end of this year. Do you know who's running for president or who's even an option? I don't. Like,
I would love, maybe I would like to see more women involved.
absolutely.
That's something I
Absolutely.
don't see much in, Haitian politics. I know we had Eartha, but she lasted a year back in the 90s. But yeah, I would like to see more women involved in politics if there's space for them, if they would allow that space for them. We don't know if that's ever going to happen again
That's
or
the
not.
question, right? Absolutely. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a woman, but this is what research has literally said and studied. Organizations and countries led by women, overall, their people, their employees report happier satisfaction, work satisfaction. They have happier like work-life balance, and they're more productive, right? We have very few countries in this world that have women head of states. The countries that do have female heads of states, those are thriving countries, right? like literally, and I think there's maybe three or four of them. One of them is in one of the like the Nordic countries and stuff. We have oh my gosh, this is gonna kill me that I'm not remembering her name, but the president of Mexico, right? Very interested to see like what her tenure is going to look like, her administration. But I think Haiti would thrive under female leadership. I mean, female leadership is at the core of our society, right? Potomitan, like we are like the pillars, like we're one of the main pillars of our society. Haiti would thrive under that. Now, your question whether or not that's actually possible, will they allow space for that? I don't see it. Not right now. I think it would take a very charismatic, enigmatic, and really inspirational personality to be able to surpass those feelings that she's gonna get towards like from these men. But yeah, I don't know. And then in terms of like elections, we kind of already see like Haiti's version of campaigning has started, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing the likes of, Nicolas Duvalier is already, publishing on Facebook, his strategic vision for Haiti, right? Not announcing anything, not saying, but all of a sudden, he's being vocal about his thoughts on the future of Haiti. We see an uptick in violence in the capital, right? You have the gangs literally going to different communities in Delma. You saw the stories like out of Kinskov. This is part of like intimidation tactics already starting to like gain the groundwork towards trying to impact citizen participation in the elections, right? And again, we don't even know who's running. Like, who is running and where's this money gonna come from? Like,
Yeah.
like who's gonna pay for this? So that's why I say it's a farce. Like it's a talking point to keep people at bay for a while, but there's no plan and they know it, So we'll see. But the Haitian Times will be on it covering.
I'm sure you will. I mean, you got millions of people over there who are now displaced from Port-au-Prince. And now you have some folks who have TPS that will expire in August that will have to go back, many to Port-au-Prince. What do you think the impact will be on these communities moving forward over there in Haiti?
It's just going to be exacerbating the current issues that are there. All of the issues that we see right now is just going to be amplified. And so, one already dealing with a country and a capital that is oversaturated, right? So that's the first thing. Like Port-au-Prince, I believe, was built for 1 million people, maybe. And I'm sure I'm even wrong. Whatever figure it is, it's like 3 times double the people. I feel like if it was built for 1 million, it's like 3 million living in there, or if it was built for a 500,000, like 2 million. I forget the exact figures, but it's oversaturated. And so there's already like housing issues that's happening. All of this displacement. So now these people that are gonna come back, right?
Yeah.
What are they gonna come back to? Hopefully, we see a bit more decentralization happening in Haiti. And so a lot of more people are going to the provinces. But who knows? And then it's like, we have to remember as well, like there's currently what I think maybe only Sunrise that's going in and out of Haiti
There's
through
an
Cabaye.
aviation ban. Yeah.
So American and I believe Spirit said that they're going to resume flights at some point this month. But who's to say, right? They stopped flying there because of the gang violence. Well, people just were massacred last week. You know what I mean? Like the violence hasn't gotten better.
2 police officers were shot at. So
yeah. So it's like there's all of these logistical things that I don't think are being thought out at either high level in the US administration, and then definitely not the Haitian government. Like, and this is not just an issue that our people that came to America are dealing with, right? What about the people in Bahamas and the treatment that they're facing, right? The people in Dominican Republic, the people in Turks and Caicos, like we are getting it everywhere we go and are being told to go back to Haiti while our government is not even addressing the huge elephant in the room. Like, what are we coming back to? We're just creating a bigger humanitarian crisis that's going to reverberate as consequences to the US that then creates more xenophobia. It's just like it's an ugly cycle that just keeps perpetuating itself that I don't know how we break free from.
Wouldn't it be amazing for Haitian Americans to be able to be involved in government in Haiti?
Yeah, yeah. I absolutely think so. I know that is like a loaded question and sentiment depending on, who you ask and their history with Haiti and the diaspora. But the one thing that reigns true is that regardless of what people outside of our community can say about Haiti and the dysfunction that's happening in there, and try to assign that chaos and dysfunction to us as a people, all they have to do is point to the strength of the community outside of Haiti, right? Like what happens when we leave and we are put in places where there's access to education, affordable education, right? There's access to resources, there's access to just being able to have basic needs met, right? So that way you can think about bigger picture things about your career, your path, your how do you integrate yourself as a valuable member of society. And so we need to not just spit that stat, right? You always hear at all these Haitian conferences, oh, we have 80% brain drain, we have 80% brain drain. Well, now we need to like figure out, and I know this is a conversation that's happened long before I've been a part of it, is how do we get that 80% back, right? Like how do we make sure that we're capitalizing on this strength, intellectual strength that exists, and not just outside of Haiti, in Haiti as well, right? Like, and that's the huge misconception that everybody has left that has something to offer. That's farthest thing from the truth, right? It's about connecting the people there with opportunities that folks in the diaspora can bring to them, right? I'll point to the Haitian Times. That's one of the things that I am so proud of that's happened over the last decade that I never would have been like, I never would have imagined us being able to have a team in Haiti, right? Like our director of product and technology is this young man named Luigi Joseph. He's been working with us for almost 3 years now. Like my right hand man, like runs this thing with me, the technical infrastructure. If I have a problem, like Luigi's on it. We have amazing reporters in Cap Haitien and Port-au-Prince and Fort Jacques. Like there is like a wealth of talent of young people just waiting for opportunities to be tapped into. And so to know that like, okay, yes, Luigi, you may not be able to like get an opportunity to leave the country, but I don't want you to leave. Like, and I hate to say that, but it's like we need people who want to stay in Haiti to like be part of the solution in Haiti. Like we cut ourselves off at the knees once we leave for several ways, right? You get caught up in making up your new life. People in Haiti may like feel like, well, you left, you shouldn't be a part of the solution, right? Like, but we need to build up the people in Haiti and connect them with opportunity there. And so I'm so proud that we're able to employ people there and like, no, like help build up like this intellectual, creative workforce that is already there. The talent is there. It's just, we need to do a better job of connecting the resources we have in here in the diaspora with opportunities for people on the ground in Haiti versus us just thinking we need to go to Haiti to do the thing, right? We need to help arm people there already.
But they'll be on the ground to share their own stories, right? They can tell it best from where they are. So I think that's just amazing how the Haitian Times has been able to cover the diaspora in Haiti and everywhere else in the world. I think that's the coolest thing about the publication. So congratulations on you all celebrating 25 years.
I wish Gary was here because he it's really all him, right? In the
That's his
sense of like,
baby. Yeah, this is his baby.
like yeah, like to have that foresight so early in his career, so young, right? To see how important it would be for us to have our own institution, news institution, like, chapeau bas, like, because it's important, right? And what's the main thing that we're always complaining about as a people? Like, we're stereotyped. People are telling our story. You only hear the bad side of Haiti. What about the good side, right? Well, then support your community media, like support your own publications that help tell your stories, right? And all of the adjacent media that's all within that ecosystem, right? Like subscribe to your podcast, share that podcast, right? Like read Ayibo posts, like subscribe to the Haitian Times, like consume news created by people from your community in order to help amplify that as much as possible.
Again, I just want to thank you, Vania, for joining the podcast and just giving so much insight into the culture and what's next for the Haitian Times. I know you all have a summit coming up. Is it in Indy?
Yes, it's in Indianapolis. It is in May. I should know the dates right off the top of my head, but I know that there are a lot of these type of convenings, but what makes this one different is that we're really looking to leave the summit with actionable steps, right? And again, that's not to say that doesn't happen at some of these other convenings, but really trying to be purposeful into this being a practical thing, like workshopping versus us dissecting the issues, because we know what the issues are, right? It's cyclical. We know the factors. And so I would encourage, folks to come be a part of that solution. And then, part of this is also about identifying ways that we as a community that's living outside of Haiti can build up our own power and our own wealth, right? Which is another conversation. We have to be strong here financially to make sure we can be influential back at home. It always comes down to money. So.
Well, on that note, we're looking forward to that event in May, and we'll be sharing that information on our website and our social media platforms as well. Vania, thank you so much for joining the Creole Narratives podcast. It was so great to have you.
No, thank you for having me, Fadia. I am a big fan and supporter of your work. So yeah, just happy to have this conversation with you.